Welcome to the All Things Financial Podcast. I'm Trey Peterson, Season 2, Episode 59, and I'm really excited because today, Sophia is going to be interviewing me on different leadership questions and some of the things that I've learned in my journey to building a great business. Join us for an exciting episode right now. Welcome to the All Things Financial Podcast, where we help you retire once so you can retire well. Today's a new episode, episode 59 of season 2, and I have Sophia Skoog, one of our team members who leads our marketing and social media, that's going to be interviewing me, and in the following episode or two, interviewing LSA on the things that we've learned building a great business, building and becoming great leaders. And one of the things that I'll tell you is that you're always becoming, and while we've learned a lot, we have a lot more to learn, but we're excited to share with you on the journey. Join us today with my friend, Sophia Skoog.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's going to be a whole full circle moment because I feel like we've been talking about this for a while, and I'm excited to get to interview you more on just overall leadership. You're heavily involved in that world, specifically with Christian leadership, and with all the things that the podcast has coming up. I think that this is a perfect topic to talk about, especially, at the new year. It's 2026.
Come on.
Exciting things coming. And so, let's just start off with question 1. When you look back at your leadership journey, what shift in thinking most changed how you influence people today?
Yeah, I think, when I was young, I felt like someday I was going to have a great business. Someday I was going to be successful. And I think the biggest thing is I thought I was already the person that could make those things happen. And, if you read the Bible, it's really clear that everybody that God spoke to with the big dream, they had a process of developing themselves to becoming the person that they could actually lead the group of people that God called them to lead. And what I would have said is that I felt like I already had a lot of the skill set and the knowledge, and really I had very little. I was not worth following. Nobody would have followed me because I hadn't accomplished anything. And I think there's a book called The Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkerson, and it does a great job of talking about how oftentimes God will give you a picture or a vision of what he's called you to do. And even though you think maybe that's a year, 3 or 5 years out, a lot of times it's a decade or 2 decades out. But I think the reason he gives you that picture is so that you'll do the work to become the person that can do the things that he's called you to do. And so when I look at our business today, not only have we had success, the Lord's really blessed what we've put our hands to, but we've had a lot of failures. We've had a lot of, things that we've had to learn that I'm surprised that we had to learn because I knew them, I had the knowledge of them, but I didn't have the experience to do them right. So the biggest thing I would say is that I had to learn that in order to accomplish a big dream, I had to have a dream team. And it took me and LSA, over 8 years to find the right players to have the success that we wanted to have.
Yeah, when you say that, it makes me think of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness before they got into the promised land. And sometimes when it comes to leadership, it takes years of wandering and searching and almost refinement before you get to step into the fruition that God has for you, or just the reward of that. So that's really great. So was there a specific moment that kind of forced that shift in thinking that you had from follower to leader? And are you ever just solely a leader or solely a follower?
Well, I would say to be a great leader, you have to be a good follower. So if you jump on social media today, everything, Sophia, is about you should work for yourself. You should not work for anybody else. You should, be the CEO. And it's like, the CEO of what? When I was 23 years old, I didn't know anything. I think one of the greatest things that's missing is people don't understand that only 4% of people are entrepreneurs. And it's not a higher calling. In fact, as a retirement advisor, I've watched in a lot of small business owners that come to meet with me after 30 or 40 years, they would have made more money, had less stress, and been more successful had they been aligned with a team of people that had skill sets that they don't have. And so one of the things I would say when it comes to, really that is that you need to know what your strengths are and you need to know what your weaknesses are. So one of the things I know is that I love serving people. I'm good at sales. I'm terrible at administrative things and organizational things. So I knew that even though I would have loved to have my own business where I own 100% or the whole thing, that I would go further And I would have more success if I had a business partner that had the strengths that were my weaknesses. And if you look, and you know this because we work together, you're on our team, Yelisa and I are very different, but we complement each other really well. And I would say that most people need to understand that God has alignments for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I would say to a young person, don't be in a hurry to be the CEO. Spend 3, 5, 7, 10 years getting a paycheck and learning from somebody. And if God has it for you to be a CEO someday, it'll be in his timing, and you'll actually be further along by getting trained and developed by others than by being a maverick and doing it on your own.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that, because I think specifically with my generation, I'm Gen Z, we are so focused on results first. And so when you scroll on social media, Instagram, TikTok, you're seeing get rich quick in 15 seconds,
Right.
And I think it's just because our attention span has been taught to go from, full movies, TV shows, we used to be able to watch that in one sitting,
Right.
to 15-second videos that I scroll past half the time because they lose my attention span.
Right.
And so when it comes to business and leadership, I think what teenagers, early 20s, even sometimes millennials struggle with is building a career that lasts them the long game, building a legacy that lasts for a lifetime instead of a day,
Well, and what I would say, so if you're young and you're listening and you have a big dream that God's placed in your heart, what you need to understand is there's different seasons of life. There are your learning years, and then there's your earning years. And I think all of us, including myself, I wanted to jump into my big earning years right away. And when I got started, I learned that I was going to work hard not to be rich, but just to pay off my school loans. I was going to work hard not to buy an amazing car, but just to get stable in my life. And so one of the things I would say is you need to know the season of life that you're in. And you need to decide that I'm going to invest in myself and my skill set. I'm going to find somebody that has the fruit in their life that I want, and I'm going to go work with them for 2, 3, 5, 7 years. And if they keep promoting me and keep giving me raises, man, I'm probably better off building with that person than I am building my own thing. But time will show that process out. But you need to know that you're going to have learning years. And once you've developed a great skill set, once you've developed your EQ, your emotional intelligence, now you have the ability to increase your opportunities. And so know your earning seasons from your learning seasons, and it always starts with a learning season first.
Yeah. Going along with that, being in a learning season contains a lot of discipline in order to have a fully successful earning season. So what personal discipline or value has protected your leadership the most over the past couple of years?
I think as a leader, you need to know what you want most. And so for me, when we started our business 8.5 years ago, it was the second business that I had been a partner of. I had worked for others. I think in order to be a great leader, you need to be a great follower. But the thing that I decided is that I'm going to be the turtle and not the hare. So growing up, my dad, Sophia, he would always say, in life, you can choose between being the turtle and the hare. And the hare looks like they're winning in the beginning of the race. But a lot of times they burn out because they either give up family time and marriage time and date nights to build the business. And that's why a lot of times I think we see a lot of successful business leaders that are divorced, not just once, twice, but 3 times, because they put all of their focus on being financially successful. And so when we started our business, I said, we're going to do this the right way. We're not building to break records. We're not building so that we're walking across stages. If those things happen, it's great. But what we're going to do is we're going to build in a way that our wives love our work. They're thankful for our businesses, and they see that we put them and our kids first. And so over the last 8.5 years, one of the things that we've done is we've worked hard, but we haven't given up family time. We've prioritized family time. And what it's done is it's given us wives that respect our work and kids that respect what we do, instead of having kids that are mad at the business or mad at the ministry because we took all of our energy and time and put it into the mission, when the mission is the family. So you need to know your why. You need to work hard, but you also need to make sure that you're not giving up the things that matter most in the process of building your dream.
Yeah. So then how do you think stewardship plays a role within that, specifically when it comes to the influence and leadership that you have over others?
Yeah, I think as a Christian leader, nothing bothers me more than a Christian who ends up getting arrogant. And the reason I would say that is one of the things that you know as a Christian is even though you're developing your skills and you're becoming, there's no success I've ever had that God's hand wasn't involved in it. You know, I know a lot of people, and we all do, that they've been successful and they don't even have a relationship with the Lord. What I can tell you is that my success has largely been because of the Lord and his blessing on my life. And so one of the things I would say in stewarding the blessing is that as you continue to have success, that you're always willing to help others that want to be where you're at. And wherever you're at, even for you, you're 18 months out of college?
I graduated in April.
Okay. So you're, barely out of college, but you've spent the last 8 to 10 months learning a new skill set. So somebody coming out of school, if they said, Sophia, what do I need to know if I'm moving into a marketing role or an administrative role? You can go, let me share what I've done the last 8 months. And so I think one of the keys to being somebody that God can continue to bless is being confident in your skill set and who God is, but not getting arrogant. And I think what that looks like from a natural standpoint is that you stay approachable, you keep loving people, and that you're not good to invest time into anybody that really asks.
Yeah, I think that it's great that you kind of included your faith in that stewardship, because I think with a lot of leaders, you can have a leader who's in the world and a leader that's in their faith. The leader in their faith is going to focus on the relationship with God and see that their value is in that and not their success. While a dangerous path for a leader who's in the world is their value is coming from their success. So if that success stops, so does their value.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would say you need to know whose you are, right? So we belong to Jesus, but you also need to be approachable. So here's what I would say to anybody that's a Christian leader. Keep growing, keep developing, become a confident person. But if you read the Word of God, God hates pride and arrogance. And I think the separating line of being confident and being arrogant is if people reach out to you, are you willing to respond? Are you willing to answer? And one of the things I know is even as God has blessed us, just because you've been successful doesn't mean that it continues. You hope it continues. You want it to continue. But one of the ways I think that you increase the likelihood that God keeps blessing it is that you help others. So one of the things that we've committed to is stewarding what God's given us. And one of the ways that we do that is that we live generous. And as God keeps blessing us, we don't just give more, but we give greater. We believe in sacrificial giving, my wife and I. And so one of the things I've said is as the Lord increases our income, we're not just going to give more money, but we're going to give a bigger percentage away. And I think one of the ways that you fight greed is by being generous.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. So I think following into our next question, what decision did you make under pressure that revealed more about your character rather than your competence?
Yeah, I would say many people have heard the quote that skill sets can open doors or give you favor, but it's character that keeps you there. So I would give a real practical advice is when you're in business, there are a lot of opportunities to do what's best for you and not what's best for your client. And so in our industry, we're in a fiduciary fee-based model, and we use investments that typically they average a 1% fee, and they're as low as 0.5%, as high as 2%, depending on the portfolio. But we have the ability, we could decide overnight, we're going to shift the way we do things, and we're going to use products that pay us an average of 2% a year. And the reason that we don't do that is because we know that if we serve people right, and if we do the right thing, we'll have more success long-term than make a bunch of money up front and be done. And so what I would say is one of the tests of character is, am I doing for my clients what I would do for my parents, what I would do for myself? And so one of the things that Yellis and I have committed to, and we talk about this, when we create a portfolio and we're helping people, we go, would we put our parents into this? Is this something that we would recommend to my mom and dad with the money that they've spent 40 plus years saving, working their butt off for? I remember the days, our poor days, where my parents were eating macaroni and cheese and hot dogs because they were saving for retirement. They were investing in real estate. So when I meet with a couple, I don't just think about this is the money for the retirement. I think about the journey it took and the 4 or 5 decades it took to getting that nest egg. And so one of the things that you have to do when you're building a great business is you have to build it to last. The way that you build it to last is you do what's best for others, not what's best for you. And it's called the law of indirection. And I love this. John Maxwell, Sophia, he says, the law of indirection says, if you chase money, money will flee from you. But if you chase serving people and putting people first, money will be attracted to you. And so I would say whatever business you're in, whatever industry that you're in, if you want to win long-term, not just short-term, keep the client first and serve people, and money will be attracted to you.
It's so funny you say that, because I have a funny story from college, or not a funny one, but an intentional one.
I want to hear it.
So I was on a leadership team for a college ministry that does a retreat weekend once a semester. And so their tradition the night before we go on this retreat is to take all the leaders from it. And the head of this organization, his name is Austin Rockwell, would ask a question to the students of the room. And he would say, what's one word to describe leadership?
Yeah.
And he'd always say, if you've been here before, don't raise your hand and answer and give it away. And so everyone's raising their hand. They're saying servant, stewardship, putting yourself after others, you know? Yeah. Always the answer shocked the first-time leaders, and it's influence. You wouldn't expect that to be your first thought when it comes to leadership, but how you influence others is a great deal of showing who you are as a character. And I remember the first time I heard it, and I was really taken aback from it, because I thought I was right when I said stewardship.
Right.
And while it is that, it's all goes back to how you influence others, how your stewardship influences others. And that is an idea from John Maxwell. And so learning that as a 19-year-old college student shaped the rest of my leadership journey throughout college and now into my adult life. And so I think that is such an important thought to have too.
Yeah, I think, another way to say that when we talk about influence, because that is one of the words that John uses, John Maxwell, is God can only bless you at the level that you've given him the opportunity to. So one of the things I've learned is there's been seasons of my life that I asked God to open doors that he didn't open, and I know it's because I wasn't the person that could actually do the thing that I needed to do at that time. But also, one of the things I've noticed is as God's increased me, as the business has grown, as my finances have grown, the opportunities around me have grown. So my business coach, Keith Kraft, has a really great quote. And he says, when you grow, everything around you grows. And so what I've learned is in order for me, like in my business, in our wealth management firm, in order to attract a bigger client, I had to develop a skill set that I could serve the bigger clients. When Yellis and I got started, we knew how to serve people that had 2, 3, 4, 500,000, or maybe a couple $1 million. And now that's continued to grow because we actually know how to serve and solve problems of people that have higher net worths. So one of the things that I didn't know when I got started is why aren't we attracting big clients? And the reason is we didn't have the skill set to help them. So as we grew our skill set, God increased our influence, which brought in more revenue for the business for us to build a bigger and a better team. One of the things, Sophia, this, is I really value hiring the right people. There's a quote, by the way, if you're listening, this is really interesting. I heard this quote at so many different leadership seminars and Christian leadership seminars, and everybody gave different people credit. So I don't know who the founder is, but here's the quote. If you hire for character, you can train skills. And I thought, wow, what a good thing to know. And we hired all these people that had great character, but what I found is many of them were capped and they couldn't develop new skills. And so I said to myself, even though that's been true for somebody and it worked for them, it's not working for us. So what we did is we shifted and we started looking for people that had the right character, but in their past already had some of the right skills. And we knew that we could continue to develop them, but we needed people that had already been winning in something. When we hired you on, one of the things I had told the whole team is I said, I'm not going to hire anybody directly out of college because I don't want to spend those 2-3 years developing that person. When I came out of college, I remember thinking, I don't know anything. And I couldn't believe how humbling it was walking into my first career. Even Sophia sending an email, I was like, am I doing this right? You just question all of it. But what I would say is that I saw that you were a runner. I saw that you were leading TED Talks at your university. I saw all these things and I said, okay, here's somebody that doesn't have experience, but you had the core values that we have, same faith. You come from a family that taught you a lot of great leadership things, but also you were winning in things. And one of the things I would say is that when you're hiring, one of the skill sets that you can't train is work ethic. And if somebody has been winning in life, it typically means that they have a great work ethic. Because I've never found that I can take somebody that has an average or below average work ethic and make them a hard worker. Mm-hmm. But if you find people that have your core values and they've already been winning and they have skills, you can develop that person. In our office, just to brag on you a little bit, one of the things I had said to the team is we need somebody that we can develop, but we need somebody that's going to be the team member that fires everybody up. Your optimism, the way that you greet people, the way that you love people in our lobby. Almost every week people go, that Sophia is the right person at the front desk, because you love talking with people. And it's not even that you have to force it, it's who you are. So what I would say to people is look for the right skill set, look for the right core values, look for people that have been winning, even if they were winning in sports, as long as they had to develop their skills and it wasn't just off, their athleticism, that's probably a great team member. And so that's what we've done, and it's been very successful.
Yeah, I love that you bring up just the act of hiring people and managing your team in a way that helps them become more successful leaders. Thank you so much for what you said just about my story of coming here. It's kind of funny because I just talked with a friend a few weeks ago who's coming near the end of her college journey, and she was asking me for advice on finding jobs post-grad and how do you get involved and how do you play the LinkedIn game.
Right. You directly message the CEO.
Yeah. That's,
Let me say this really quick. You want to tell that story or you want me to?
We should tell it from both perspectives.
Go.
So from my perspective, I was in my senior year, I was getting applications ready for jobs ever since I started my senior year in September. And it came to around January time and I was feeling a little defeated because the job market right now is not great. And so my prayer to the Lord was, I'm going to throw a bunch of pins at a map, God, and wherever you want me to be, make that known.
Cool.
And so I went on LinkedIn, I found this job, I stalked it on LinkedIn, saw that it had great leaders that shared my same values. And my thought to myself was I couldn't just end here. I can't just send an application in because I was invested in this company already.
Right.
I was invested in who the people were. And so I saw the hiring manager and so I sent a quick message. I just said, I think that this job would be a right fit. I'm really interested in learning more. Do you have time for a phone call for me to be able to connect with you? Yes.
Right.
I didn't know that you were
So then at the same time, we're getting all these resumes of people applying. And I said to my team, I am so sick of reading resumes. And I said, I wish somebody would either just directly email me or stop by the office and say, here's my resume, hire me, I'm the right person for the job. And within a couple days, I had a direct message from you on LinkedIn. And it said, hey, my name's Sophia. I applied for that role, whatever. I think I could be the right person. And I was like, Sophia, we're going to set up an interview right now. And you ended up getting the job. So what I would say is, like you said, it's tough to get a great job. Mm-hmm. Here's what I always say to people that say that.
It's tougher to find an amazing company, though.
It is, 100%. So here's what I would say, though, is the good news is whoever's listening, you only need one job for today. You only need one career. But what you should do is do what others aren't doing. Here's what I think your generation has lost is everything is so internet, social media, text messaging. I even see all these memes all the time of people in your generation. They're like, why in the world would somebody call me? Don't call me, text me. And I just laugh and I'm like, man, if you want to build relationships, you got to make a phone call. So, but here's what I would say is if you are applying at a job and the CEO is over 35 years old, which is very likely that person is, the way that you separate yourself is you show up to the office with your resume in your hand. And you say, I don't know who the decision maker is, but I wanted to hand them my resume and I wanted to shake their hand and let them know I think I'm the person for this job. Here's what I would say to you. That is so impressive to a decision maker. And what you did, John Maxwell calls it getting yourself out of the people pile. Mm-hmm. There's a pile of people and you want to get noticed. How are you going to get noticed? By doing something that nobody else is doing. If you want to get out of the people pile, as John Maxwell says, show up to the office or direct message the partner, the managing partner, the CEO, which in this case was you messaging me. Because what it tells that person is that I'm reaching out to you and nobody else did. And as long as your resume is good and your background is good and the interviews are good, you've separated yourself from the crowd and you're more likely to land the position.
Yeah, it's almost like that photo of the fish going the opposite direction of the herd. You know, you're setting yourself apart and you're saying, I care more about joining the right company and I care about asserting myself in a way that is going to show my work ethic, my drive, my ambition. And so, yeah, any advice to college students? You're in your senior year, your junior year, you're looking at jobs for after college. Put yourself out there and don't be afraid to introduce yourself into the heart of saying, I don't care if I get rejected, but I'm going to DM on LinkedIn whoever I can to bring myself into this position of getting an interview, or I'm going to call the CEO, or I'm going to call the front desk, or I'm going to walk into the office with my resume, because that really is going to show that you not only care about this job, but you care about finding the right company because you're wanting to get to know the people in it before you're even hired.
Well, here's another thing I would say. So my first job, I was chasing the success of somebody that I knew that was 20 years older. One of the things I would say to anybody graduating from college or anybody that's unhappy in their career, I spent 3.5 years in business insurance. Sophia, I hated going to work almost every day, but I thought if this is what it takes to win, I'm going to keep showing up, which is a good attitude. However, I wish I would have listened to people around me and found something that I believed in the process. And so here's what I would say is don't just chase the industry of success. So we have a client. He's a plumber, and he's been very successful. And I'll never forget, I said, Mark, out of curiosity, you've built a great business, you've been successful. How did you decide to become a plumber? And he said, Trey, when I was growing up, my family was so poor. He goes, we rarely had groceries. He goes, we were just working so hard to make it. But I had a friend from school that when I went to his house, he goes, something amazing happened every time. His fridge was full of food. And not just whatever food, it was good food. And he said, I remember asking my friend, what does your dad do? And here he is, like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And his friend said, I'm a plumber. And here our client, who's now in his late 60s, as a 15-year-old, said, if I want to have a fridge full of food for me, my wife, and kids, I need to do what my friend's dad does. And he chose to be a plumber because he wanted the success that his friend's dad had. I did the same thing, but what I found is, I wanted to have a great paycheck and I wanted to have time for my family and I wanted my wife to have the option to stay at home if that's what she wanted to do. I chose an industry because I was chasing somebody that had done that in commercial insurance. The question I didn't ask, and here's the question that I think every young adult should ask, every 20-something, every 30-something, every 40-something. Most people don't find their thing till they're in their 40s. Here's the question I would ask. If everything paid the same, how would you spend 40 to 50 hours a week? For me, it was helping people with finances. It was doing planning. It was helping with tax strategy. Those things I would do for free. However, I get to charge for them. So what I would say to people is find something that you would do for free because you love it so much. And find somebody that's been so successful in that and just go serve them, learn from them, and develop your skill set so that you can go from learning to earning.
Yeah, well, I think that is a great story, Trey, and I think that leads perfectly into our last question of the day. How do you distinguish between building something impressive and building something enduring?
Yeah, so I would say that if you sat down with 100 CEOs, most of them would say that they enjoyed what they did when they had less than 30 to 50 employees. Once they got over that, they went from, oftentimes, not always, but they went from having a culture of kind of like a family. And, obviously you have a family and I have a family, and having, a family of origin is different than a family of choice. But think about this. If you're going to spend your best hours of your best days working with a group of people, you want them to have the same core values as you. You want to work hard, but you equally want to play hard. You want to talk about things that sharpen each other, but you also want to be silly. Once you get past a certain level, most of the time of employees, once you get so big, a lot of times I think what happens is people are just building for success instead of intentionally building for purpose. And so I'm not saying that you can't grow and keep the purpose, but I'm saying it's rare that people do. So one of the things that we've decided is that we're going to keep growing and we're going to keep getting better, but we're going to do it in a way that we don't lose the goal. We don't lose who we are. Because for me, I would rather make X amount of dollars per year and love what I do and have a culture where people serve others, they sharpen each other, we have fun together, than to double my income and feel like I'm surrounded by people with different core values. I'm surrounded by people that are skilled, but they don't have a similar faith or the same faith. I'm surrounded by people that they value things differently than I value them, and oftentimes not keeping their family first. So here's what I would say, is if you're building something, building it in a way that it's culture first instead of money first will give you a life that you're satisfied with instead of one that you wish you wouldn't have built. We only get one life to live. Do it on purpose. In our industry, one of the mistakes I see a lot of people make is that when we have success, there's a lot of companies that will give you recognition. And a lot of people that set out to build a great business, to support their family well, to allow their spouse to stay home so they could be generous with the church or nonprofits, they end up becoming so successful that everybody around them says, here's what success looks like. Instead of working 40 or 50 hours a week, it's working 80 hours a week. Instead of making enough to have time to go to your kid's football game, you should be taking appointments so that you can break the record and walk across the stage and get the trophy. A lot of business owners have chose recognition, awards, and more money over being a great husband, a great wife, a great father or mother, and we're not going to do that. So the difference between building a great business or a kingdom business and just building a successful business is building it based off of core values and remembering your why.
Yeah. Well, that is so good. This is a great episode for any walk of life. I'm excited to see just how many lives that this impacts and helps propel towards their goals. You guys can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and we will see you next week.
Sophia, you're always behind the scenes. Thanks for being behind the camera today.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Advisory services are offered through CG Advisory Services, LLC, a registered investment advisor, and through Guardian Wealth Strategies, LLC, a registered investment advisor. CG Advisory Services, LLC, and Guardian Wealth Strategies, LLC, are separate and unaffiliated entities. The topics discussed on this podcast are for educational purposes only and are not intended to be investment advice or recommendations. Listeners should consult with their own financial professionals before making any investment decisions.